Hello everybody, Max here, and coming up on today's fix, the original Nintendo Switch is getting a price hike in the US after 8 years on the market. The Switch 2 breaks another sales milestone, but in spite of this, EA still has no plans to put Battlefield 6 on there. Let's get into it. Historically, video game hardware gets cheaper in the later years of a console generation, but that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. In fact, the original Nintendo Switch is actually getting more expensive than it was at launch. An official announcement on the Nintendo website states, quote, "Pricing for the original Nintendo Switch family of systems and products will change in the United States based on market conditions effective August 3rd, 2025. These include Nintendo Switch OLED model, Nintendo Switch Lite, and select Nintendo Switch accessories." Video game bargain watchdog Wario64 was quick to spot that these had already taken effect at Target, noting that the Switch OLED model was now $399 US, up from $349. The non-OLED Switch was up $40 from its original $299 price point, and the Switch Lite is now $30 more than it was at launch. Joy-Con 2 controllers and Alarmo have also gone up $5 and $10 respectively. Now bear in mind, none of these consoles had gotten official price cuts since they launched to begin with, so if you bought a Nintendo Switch back in March 2017 when it first dropped, you got a pretty good deal. Elsewhere, select Amiibo have also gotten price increases recently. The newest Zelda and Street Fighter ones are already $30 and $40 a pop respectively, which is a pretty far cry from the $12.99 MSRP that the earliest Amiibos sold for at launch, which is a much more collectible-friendly price. You can get a bunch of them for that much, but when they're 3 times the price, I don't know. At $40, you're better off just buying video games, I think. In any case, what market conditions could possibly be the culprit here? Well, industry analyst Daniel Ahmad pointed to President Trump's latest trade tariffs as a factor, saying 20% tariff on Vietnam, 30% tariff on China, 15% tariff on Japan, all markets that Nintendo relies on for hardware and software production. Raising the prices on last-gen hardware so late in the game might seem like an odd move, but if anything, it makes the Switch 2 seem slightly more reasonably priced by comparison, and considering how many millions of units the Switch 1 has already sold, it's probably less disruptive to Nintendo's bottom line than a price hike for the new model would be. Will the Switch 2 get a price hike as well? That remains to be seen, but my guess is that Nintendo is doing everything it can to avoid that, as it would kill the new system's momentum. Speaking of which, Nintendo's first financial report since the launch of the Switch 2 is in, and it is extremely positive, as the new system has sold more than 6 million units in the 7 weeks post-launch. Overall sales totaled 572.3 billion yen, which is around $3.8 billion, and operating profit grew 4% to 56.9 billion yen, which is roughly $378 million, for the 3 months ending June 30th. After all the furor over Trump's tariffs and changing product prices, in its financial report, Nintendo said, quote, "At this time, there's no significant impact on our earnings forecast for this fiscal year. This exceeded the company's expectations, and it's sticking to the initial forecast of moving 15 million Switch 2s by the end of the financial year ending March 2026. At one point, 15 million units seemed rather bullish, but with sales already more than a third of the way there in just a couple of months, it seems almost modest now. There will definitely be a surge of Switch 2 sales as we move closer to the holiday season, but the same market conditions that led to the Switch 1's price hike can also have wider reaching effects and maybe put a damper on how much people are willing or able to spend around Black Friday. Are any of you holding off on buying a Switch 2 until closer to the holidays? Is all this talk of a price increase having you considering buying one sooner? Let us know in the comments below. Some of the biggest gaming news of the week is the grand reveal of Battlefield 6 following a huge hands-on multiplayer event for press, streamers, YouTubers, and the like, and while it's currently slated for a fall release on PC, Xbox Series, and PS5, don't hold your breath for a Switch 2 version. Speaking to Eurogamer, Battlefield boss Vince Zampella said that despite being a huge Switch fan himself, the company doesn't currently have any plans to bring the shooter to Nintendo's latest console, and is instead focusing on serving the established player bases on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. That really shouldn't come as a surprise, considering the 2 decades and change since the series debuted. Battlefield has never been on a Nintendo system. Depending how well the Switch 2 sells, that could always change. Early impressions of Battlefield 6 are pretty positive, and a lot of people who played it are saying it feels a lot like Battlefield 3 and 4, which is good, but maybe not exactly groundbreaking, unless of course you're talking about literally breaking the ground, which you could do a whole lot of thanks to some genuinely impressive destruction physics. But any Switch 2 owners hoping to do some of that in the meantime, destroying a bunch of buildings and punching holes in the ground, you're probably better off with Donkey Kong Bonanza. In any case, Donkey Kong Bonanza is out right now. It's very good. You should go play it. And Battlefield 6 is out on October 10th for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. That is your fix for August 1st, 2025. Now that you're all caught up, how about catching up on some summer reading? No, but seriously, if you missed out on San Diego Comic-Con this year, our friends over at Humble have put together a great bundle of digital comics and graphic novels that is still available. There's a stack of different titles from publishers like Image, Dark Horse, IDW, with a few noteworthy additions like Godzilla, The Half-Century War, The Witcher, Ronin, and Blade Runner 2019, plus dozens of stories featuring iconic characters like Conan the Barbarian, Red Sonja, Vampirella, and Hellboy, and that is just a few examples. It is over $350 worth of comics, but it can be yours for just $24, and best of all, the proceeds go to a good cause, the Book Industry Charitable Foundation, which helps assist bookstore employees experiencing unexpected financial hardships. It'll only be available until August 14th, so jump on that now. Head to humble.com and grab some comics before it's too late. If you haven't watched it yet, go get a look ahead of what's coming out this coming month in my latest video, August's biggest game releases. I will see you next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for watching. Cowabunga.